Hey everybody. I did an experiment, and this is something. Well, it's been something I've been thinking about. I looked around on YouTube, and then I didn't really find any videos that explain this to the level where I wanted it explained. So the contrast paints, right? This is like the final nail in the coffin for me. Like, this just totally puts it all to bed for me. My final question, like, I've seen a lot of YouTubers where they did their thoughts, like contrast paints like 1 year later, or like revisiting contrast paints, and like people that I respect, like people that I think they're phenomenal painters, like Vince Venturella or Trevelyan or Scott, Miniature Maniac, people like that, where they talked about their thoughts about contrast paints like a year later. And my final question was, what do contrast paints look like over a Zenithal paint job? Like, if you do your very best attempt at a Zenithal paint job, and then you do the one coat and done, like when I go to my friendly local gaming store, they have a poster on the wall with the contrast paints, and it says, finally one coat and done, instead of the two thick coats and then the, you know what I'm talking about. Duncan, looking at, talking about you. Hope your ears are burning. So, yeah, so I did it. I did my experiment, and it's up to you to decide. It's up to you to decide what you think about contrast paints and how they work over Zenithal paint job, and I'll give you my thoughts on it. And that's all this video is going to be about. And yeah, I just did the bones on these guys. I adopted a bunch of skeleton guys, off of eBay for Legions of Nagash. Me and my buddy we're working on Warcry warbands, and basically there's a lot of crossover. Like, for me, it's like it checks off a lot of boxes. Like, if I can use it in Frostgrave, if I can use it in Warcry, if I can use it in D&D, and like Rangers of Shadow Deep and Age of Sigmar, and like, you get the idea. So these guys, just having a bunch of skeletons kind of checks off a lot of boxes for me, and I was curious because they're all bone, so I thought it'd be a good experiment. But we'll get into the painting. I'll stop talking. I'll stop talking. All right, so I've got these guys. These I forget what they're called. Just generic Legions of Nagash skeleton guys. None of them really have a whole lot of armor on them. They're just like, troops, cheapo troops. And then I based them up. I took some, this is like, I sifted out some sand, and then I added a little bit of kitty litter. So this is like kind of the heavier stuff. And then I put some fine grit sand on top of that to kind of fill in the cracks. I do have basing videos, you guys. It's just you don't watch them, you don't like them. So anyways, yeah, these guys are prime black, and now what I'm gonna do is I have everybody kind of facing the same direction on this piece of MDF, and then I'm just gonna I'm gonna do a Zenithal highlight with the airbrush from this angle to kind of pick up, and I'm going to focus on faces, weapons, and shields to be like kind of the highlights, the focus, like focal points. So they're going to get the highest highlights, and then I'm just going to turn the board gradually as I go, get them from all around. Okay, so got some Vallejo Model Air neutral gray. So I'm going to give everybody a coat all over with this. And so yeah, I got a new airbrush. It's very picky about its paint consistency. I got a new It's harder in Steambeck Evolution. And but I'm gonna try something different. I want to try and use my DIY quick change paint thinner and see if that helps. Because it very much wants the paint to be more of a thin consistency. It has a smaller nozzle. If the paint isn't the right consistency, it just doesn't want to go through the airbrush the right way. Let's see if this works better than my my favorite brand of airbrush thinner. Just gonna give it a try. I'm working on a I'm gonna do a video about this too, about this quick change solution. There's a secret ingredient that seems to do a really good job. Okay, that's about right. About skim milk consistency. Wow, that's actually making a huge difference. That's going through the airbrush really well and not getting any kind of splattering or anything. Oh, that's wonderful. Okay, so everybody's been Zenithal primed. You can kind of see, like, on this guy, he's like hunched over these, you know, like, I don't want him to really be black, to have like black areas, unless it's in like a deep recessed shadow, like inside his rib cage in there. So everybody's got, they've got some good gray coverage all over. And then I'm gonna go run an errand. I'm gonna let these guys get nice and bone dry, and then I'm gonna do a little bit of dry brushing on them to make like details pop out with an off-white color. But this stuff, I'm definitely gonna do a video about this. This works better than any airbrush thinner, paint thinner I've ever used. It's fantastic. I'm not clickbait, like no lie. This is amazing. I just had a breakthrough. Okay, so these guys are nice and bone dry, and you can see, you know, we've got the Zenithal, but they're still, you know, very gray. So I'm going to do some dry brushing, and you could do all of this with dry brushing. It's not going to look anywhere near as smooth, you know. It's going to look really chalky if you do everything with the dry brush, but I'm just going to do some kind of tippy top kind of highlights with the with this P3 Sickly Skin, and it's just like a kind of like a nice off-white. It has a little bit of a green to it, you know, kind of an eggshell color. And then I'm going to go around and just I'm going to work top down, and I'm going to get like on bones and things like that. I want bones to pop out, you know. I want like details of the sculpts to pop out, and I'm gonna work my way down. I'm gonna start at the top and then like work more of the paint off the brush as I go down. So basically I want this to be the lightest part, and then it's gonna get, you know, darker and darker as I get down to their feet, around the base. And I might even get the rocks a little bit too, but yeah, gonna start at the top and work my way down, doing a window shade method, if you know what that is. term that I learned in art school. But I'm going to do all these guys, and then that's going to complete my value scale. And then the rest of it is all just going to be like washes. That's where everything gets really, really sped up, where the that's where it's, you know, just really speeds up the painting process. So that's what I want them to look like when they're done. Just like that. And that completes the priming, the paint prep part. And then next is, that's going to be my value sketch. And then next is going to be the just sort of putting filters, putting color on top of the grayscale paint job. Alright, so basically that's about as good as it's going to get for me, for like a Zenithal prime, you know? Like if I was going to do my best attempt at a paint job, this is where I would start, you know, with priming. So now what I'm curious about is what the contrast paints are going to look like over this. Since these guys are mostly bone, if I use some of this skeleton horde, how is that going to look over, you know, my best attempt at a Zenithal prime, instead of like over, what do they call it, Corax white, you know, like a, so anyways, that's what we're going to do next. And then I have, yeah, we're going to do that next. Okay, so yeah, in a word, I'm I'm a little bit underwhelmed. You know, I don't know if you've seen all the the posters, all the hype surrounding the contrast paint and stuff. Like I see it whenever I go into a gaming store, and it's like one coat and done. You know, finally one thick coat. I think that's what the ad says. So yeah, I mean, there's definitely something to be said for the whole assembly line thing of just going around, doing one and going to the next one and having a pot of it mixed up where you just do one coat on there and then, you know, move on to the next thing. But that's totally not, I mean, this is nowhere near like my kind of my like tabletop standard, you know, just on its own. But you know, that was never really the goal here. So what I wanted to do next was I wanted to dry brush over this and then see how that looks as a bone, you know, because there's a lot of bony boys here who need to have their bone kind of, you know, brought up to a tabletop standard. So yeah, I mean, this is the whole point of this experiment, was I wanted to see if I could bang out a whole squad of skeletons and then see how they would look, you know, with using a combination of Zenithal, priming, contrast paints, and then dry brushing on top of that, instead of, you know, doing painful wet blending the whole time. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and go around. Yeah, I went for this sable. I went for a sable to put the contrast paints on because they almost behave like a watercolor, but the flow improver like took a lot to get this brush clean. I went for a crapped out sable brush. But anyways, now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go around and do some dry brushing again with a small, you know, very small makeup brush. To get some, just some, you know, to add some, put some of the highlights back in on these guys, because they've got good shadows. We need to get rid of the coffee staining and put the highlights back in. So first off, I'm going to do a little bit of a dry brush with some of this Iraqi, I don't know how to say this. I like this color. You can see it right here. Iraqi sand, and it does make a nice bone color. So I'm just going to go around and get these guys with some of this. Oh, this guy's still wet. I need to keep track of which guys are dry and which guys are wet. Just did some accidental wet blending. That's starting to look pretty good though, to be honest. Like, that's not bad at all. My real problem is that this stuff costs $8 a bottle. This stuff costs, well, yeah, at Hobby Lobby it's $4.99. At my friendly local gaming store, it's like $4. So you can get 2 of these for every one of these. And then how much is in a Vallejo dropper bottle? 0.57 fluid ounces, 0.6 fluid ounces. So that's almost apples to apples, twice the price for the stupid contrast paints. Okay, so I went around and dry brushed everybody with some of the whatever it is, Iroquois sand, and then now I'm gonna come back in with some of the P3 sickly skin, and I'm just gonna do some really high key highlights on these guys. You know, definitely not gonna get anything in the shadows, but just like kind of high key highlights on the tippy tops of things. And yeah, I mean, that's pretty good. I'm pretty happy with that. That's, you know, pretty good tabletop standard for me, for Bony Boys. Yeah, you know, is it worth like twice for them charging twice what Vallejo charges for their paints? I would say no, personally. You know, like there's other things that I would reach for. Like, does it do something magical? You know, is it like a superior densely pigmented wash? I don't personally think so. You know, I admit that I'm like a Vallejo fanboy. I live in their universe, you know, a lot. Like, I love their airbrush paints, and then like they're just the best to me. Like, they make the best airbrush model paints, and but that doesn't mean that I don't use other paints. You know, it doesn't mean that, like, Citadel, like Blood for the Blood God is like my favorite blood technical paint, or you know, like their a Grelin Earth or something, like their Crackle paint is like the best, you know. So there's some things where I will spend a little bit extra and specifically pick out their brand to get it, but I don't think that this is one of them for me. But, you know, it's up to you. You be the judge. You decide what you think and whether this technique is something that you would use, or you know, if you would rather do something else. So anyways, yeah, thanks for watching. So yeah, that's it. That kind of answers the final question for me about what contrast paints can do. And yeah, you know, you be the judge. So I am thinking about kind of keeping going with this and like doing the rest of these guys. And but one thing that I want to try is I want to try something about making my own densely pigmented wash. And I have some things that I've been experimenting with, so I might do a part 2 of this video. But yeah, that kind of answers the final question for me about what contrast paints can do. So anyways, yeah, I hope that, you know, you were curious about this too, and that's why you clicked on the video, or maybe you're one of my subscribers or something. But anyways, yeah, take care of yourselves. Until next time, I see you.